A doctor visits his clinic disguised as a sick beggar. The way his employees treated him made him cry. His name was Harold, and he was a very prestigious man, owner of clinics specialized in cardiology with offices spread throughout the country. He invented a unique method that was used in the first open heart transplants in a human being. After living a dignified and happy life, doing good for the world, he was diagnosed with a cardiovascular disease that cuts off oxygen and vital nutrients. So this is how he decided to end his last days, helping the way he could and giving a better life to those who deserved it. Dr. Harold was known for having a big smile on his face and being very playful. One day, he decided to arrive at one of his main offices dressed as a homeless person. He asked to be checked immediately, but did not go near the emergency room because there was a nurse on duty who became very irritated as soon as she saw him arrive. Her outrage was mostly at the guards who let in a homeless person with no insurance that could cover a medical appointment. Not seeing anyone around, the nurse intimidated the elderly man and asked him to leave of his own accord. But he refused to leave, saying, "Miss, I feel really bad. I feel short of breath and I can't take it anymore. Please, I need to see a doctor." Have you ever looked in the mirror? You sure are a beggar with no job or profit who spends your time probably drinking alcohol all day. This is a very prestigious clinic. Only the richest men in the country come to be treated in first-class machines, and the doctors are renowned all over the world. They would never dare to approach someone like you. So I suggest you go to a state hospital. This is for people like you, replied the nurse rudely. Dr. Harold was very disappointed with the cold-hearted nurse he chose to work for emergency care. "Miss, if you didn't understand me, something bad could happen to me," he replied quickly. However, she was far from wanting to help, and the bad nurse replied, "If something bad happens to you, that's a very good thing for society. We don't want any more people like you on the streets." Harold thought about leaving, but wanted to stay and see if his other employees would defend him. When the doctor on duty, his good friend Ben, approached him, he thought everything would be different. But what he said depressed him even more. "What's going on here?" he asked. And the nurse told him everything in her point of view, to which the doctor replied, "Do you think I studied hard all my life to touch someone like you? Mediocre doctors are in state hospitals. Go and let one of them treat you." Of course, a security guard was already by his side and quickly took Dr. Harold by his arm and almost threw him on the ground. Dr. Harold wept in the street outside his clinic. He couldn't believe the cruelty he witnessed from people he thought so good of. Still believing in the humanity of his employees, he went to another nearby unit, located in one of the main streets of the city. As soon as he arrived, he was stopped by the guards, who were already aware about what happened with him in the other clinic, because the nurse told them. They had orders of not letting any beggars in. Beyond that, there was another nurse there to keep him out. "I would like to talk to Dr. Daniel," said the elderly man. "How do you know him?" the nurse asked. In order to avoid a scandal, she called Dr. Daniel, and when he came, he looked offensively at the elderly man, who begged to be examined because he felt very bad. But Dr. Daniel said, "Sir, go to the state hospital, and if they don't treat you there, you better pray to get healthy naturally, because I'm sure no doctor here would dare to touch someone like you." Very sad because of what he had been through so far, He tried to think, where did he go wrong with those people? For them to act with such cruelty with an elderly man needing help. With that, he became very disillusioned with life, being so successful and with an amount of money that he had no one to share it with. He was afraid that if he donated it to the state to give to charity, they would commit all kinds of crimes. He preferred to hand over everything he had to someone he trusted, but he didn't have any family because he dedicated all his life to work. He remembered that his first clinic was 8 hours from where he was. It was already an old place and it had not been renovated. There were many people in that city, so he decided to travel at least to say goodbye to his great friend who was in charge there. Maybe he would leave everything to him, since he was one of the people he had a closer relationship with. As soon as he arrived, he entered the place and approached his friend. As soon as the friend saw him, he jumped out of his chair and shouted, "How did you enter this place? You're dirty. Look at your clothes. That's unacceptable." Harold could not understand what was going on and just replied, "Please, I feel very bad. My hands hurt. I can't feel my legs and my heart is racing. I feel like I don't have much time. If you have a good heart, I know you will help me." "Look, friend, you're a beggar, and no one will take you seriously. I don't know what else to tell you. If I were you, I'd get the hell out of here before someone else does it for you." Harold couldn't believe it. His tears covered his whole face, and he fell on the ground in the middle of the street. He had been deceived all his life, thinking that those were good people. At that moment, a nurse approached Dr. Harold. "Are you okay, sir? You don't seem well. Come with me. I will examine you," said the young man. "Thank you. I'm fine. But why are you helping me?" Harold asked. He couldn't believe that after all of what the others said, someone would actually pity him. "If my boss saw this, he would definitely fire me, but I think he's so wrong. I dream of becoming a doctor someday, and I think the right thing for any doctor to do is save people's lives, no matter who they are," said the nurse. Dr. Harold was fascinated by what he said and asked, "So, you go to a medical school and work as a nurse?" "I don't go to a medical school because I don't have the money for it, but I just finished the nursing school and I'm very happy with where I am now. Although, I plan on saving money to become a doctor." The nurse told Harold to come back there the next day during the night, because he would be alone and could help him with the correct machines, because he felt that his breathing wasn't normal. His name was Richard, and he gave the elderly man a hug and said goodbye. Dr. Harold went home shocked by what happened and called all the doctors in charge, saying that there would be an urgent meeting of the whole team at his country house that was able to fit everyone. All the doctors and nurses arrived at the scene, and Dr. Harold put on that dirty old man disguise and again became the man begging for a health check. He took the wig and the fake mustache and beard off and washed his face in front of everyone. The doctors and nurses were dumbfounded, looking at that scene when he said, "Did you know I was the beggar that came to your clinics the other day? I did that to see who would be a good person enough to be my heir after I pass away, and many of you let me down. I have all the names of the people who failed me, and you're all going to be fired, because my clinics are for everyone in need, not only for those who can pay. Our profession is to save people's lives, and I hope that this never happens again." Dr. Harold announced that his heir was going to be Richard, and it was possible to see the envy in some people's eyes as they didn't react very well to his choice. "Richard was the only one who helped me. He showed that he has a good heart, and I'm proud to leave everything in his hands to lead the clinics when I'm not here anymore. In the end, Dr. Harold transferred the entire inheritance to Richard, who would be able to fulfill his dream and pay for a medical degree in the best university. Richard could not believe what was happening, and he cried a lot because his life would change completely. He was a single father, and he worked very hard to take care of his son. After that day, Richard moved to Dr. Harold's big mansion and treated him like a father or a grandfather until the end of his days. Now, Richard is one of the best doctors in the state, and any person is treated with kindness in each of the clinics. If you know any similar stories, write about it in the comments, like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fantastic stories.